beautiful people. Welcome back to the Chloe and Leo Show. I'm your host, Chloe, the one who believes that a red lipstick and a little black dress can solve 90% of life's problems.
And I'm Leo, the one who believes that a balanced spreadsheet and a good warranty can solve the other 10%. Hello, everyone.
Leo, you're impossible, but that's why people love us. Today, we are talking about something so iconic, so legendary that even you, Mr. Spreadsheet, once admitted you'd buy it without checking the return policy.
I never said that, but I might have thought it. What are we talking about?
Chanel.
Ah, the double C, the interlocking logos, the scent that costs more than my first car.
Don't you dare insult number 5. But yes, today we're diving deep into the house that Coco built, from a humble hat shop to a billion-dollar empire. And we're not just talking about bags and perfume. We're talking about why this brand makes smart people do crazy things.
Like spending $5,000 on a bag with no visible pockets?
It has secret pockets, Leo. It's called elegance. Anyway, stick with us, because by the end of this episode, you'll either understand the obsession or you'll finally know how to argue with your partner about why they need another quilted purse.
Challenge accepted. Let's get into it.
Okay, Leo, history lesson. But make it fun. Most people think Coco Chanel was born into glamour. But that's not true, right?
Not even close. She was born Gabrielle Bonnier Chanel in 1,883 inches of poorhouse in Saumur, France. Her mother died when she was 12, and her father abandoned her and her siblings. She grew up in an orphanage run by nuns.
That's heartbreaking. But also, that's where she learned to sew, right?
Exactly. The nuns taught her the basics of tailoring. That's the foundation. But here's the interesting part. The reason she became a revolutionary designer wasn't because she had money. It was because she didn't.
Explain that. Because I always thought you need luxury to create luxury.
That's the common belief. But Chanel looked at the over-the-top, corseted, feather-hatted fashion of the early 1900s and thought, this is ridiculous. Women can't breathe, let alone work or play sports. So she started designing clothes that she herself would want to wear. Simple, comfortable, practical.
So her poverty and her past gave her a different eye. She didn't want to look like a decorated cake. She wanted to look like a modern woman.
Precisely. In 1910, she opened her first hat shop at 21 Rue Cambon in Paris. And the rich women who were tired of giant, unstable hats started coming. By the 1920s, she had expanded to clothing.
And that's when she broke the biggest rule, didn't she? She took men's clothing and put it on women.
You've done your homework. Yes. She borrowed from men's wardrobes, the jersey fabric, which was normally used for underwear or men's undershirts, and turned it into women's dresses. She also introduced the garçon look, short hair, straight silhouette, no waistline.
I love that word, garçon. It means boyish, but in a feminine way. But here's my emotional take. Chanel didn't just design clothes, she designed freedom. Before her, women were literally tied up in corsets. After her, they could drive a car, dance the Charleston, and run for a train without fainting.
That's the passionate Chloe I know. And from a rational perspective, she also understood timing. World War I had just ended. Women were entering the workforce. They needed functional clothing. Chanel was at the right place with the right idea at the right moment. That's not just luck. That's strategic genius.
But then, World War II happened. And that's the messy part, isn't it?
Yes. This is where we have to be honest. Chanel closed her fashion house in 1939, saying it wasn't a time for fashion. But she also had a relationship with a Nazi officer, Hans Günther von Dinklage, during the occupation of Paris. After the war, she was criticized, but eventually escaped serious punishment. She moved to Switzerland for nearly 10 years.
That's hard to reconcile. The woman who gave women freedom might have collaborated with the people who took freedom away from millions.
It's a legitimate criticism. Many people have boycotted the brand for that reason. But in 1954, at age 71, she returned to fashion. And that comeback is arguably even more impressive than her first act.
Tell me about the comeback, because I feel like that's where the myth of Chanel really solidifies.
She returned when Christian Dior's new look, with tiny waists and huge skirts, was dominating. Everyone said she was finished. Old news. But she introduced the Chanel suit, a collarless, braid-trimmed jacket with a straight skirt, comfortable, elegant, and revolutionary again. And within a few years, every powerful woman, from Jackie Kennedy to Romy Schneider, was wearing it.
That's the Coco I admire. Not the political one. That's complicated. But the fighter. The 71-year-old woman who said, "I don't care what you think. I know what women need." And she was right. That's not just fashion. That's a life lesson.
As a rationalist, I'd say her success came from identifying a gap in the market twice, in the 1920s and the 1950s. But as a human, I'll admit, resilience at that age is impressive.
So, history lesson over. What's the one takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
That Chanel wasn't born in a castle. She built an empire from an orphanage. That's the part that's both inspiring and, frankly, good business storytelling.
And that's why we still care. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the stuff you can actually buy. The designs that changed the world. Leo, I'm going to list a few things, and I want you to tell me the first word that comes to mind. Ready?
Fine, but no cheating.
Number 1, the little black dress.
Practical, timeless, overused in movies.
Okay, fair. But do you know the origin? Before Chanel, black was for mourning. Servants, widows. You didn't wear black to a party.
That's true. Black was a sad color. Then in 1926, Vogue published a drawing of Chanel's simple, short, black crepe de chine dress. They called it the Ford, because like the Model T car, it was simple, affordable, and for everyone.
And just like that, the LBD was born. I love this because it's anti-fashion in the best way. It says, "I don't need sequins or feathers to be interesting. My personality is the accessory."
That's very Chloe. But let me be rational again. The LBD works because it's a blank canvas. You can dress it up with pearls, down with sneakers. From an economic perspective, it's the most cost per wear efficient garment in history. You buy one black dress, you wear it for 20 years.
See? Even you admit it's genius. Okay, next. Chanel number 5.
Achoo, sorry, I'm allergic to hype.
Be serious. This is the most famous perfume in the world. Marilyn Monroe said she wore nothing to bed but a few drops of number 5.
And that quote alone probably sold 10 million bottles. But let's talk facts. Number 5 was the first perfume to use aldehydes, synthetic compounds that make the scent smell abstract, not like a single flower. It was also the first to put the designer's name on the bottle. And the bottle design? Minimalist. A plain glass rectangle, completely opposite to the ornate crystal bottles of the time.
So again, simplicity as rebellion. I love that she said, "I want a perfume that smells like a woman, not a rose garden." And that's why it's still around 100 years later. Because it's not trying to be anything other than itself.
I'll give you that. From a branding perspective, number 5 is a masterclass. The name is simple, the packaging is simple, the marketing, Marilyn Monroe, unforgettable. It's not the best smelling perfume to everyone, but it is the best branded perfume.
Thank you. Okay, last one. The Holy Grail. The 2.55 handbag.
Now this one I actually respect. Not because of the price, but because of the engineering.
Engineering? Leo, it's a purse.
A purse with a story. Coco Chanel introduced the 2.55 inches, February 1955, hence the name. Before this, wealthy women carried handbags in their hands or wore small, impractical evening bags. Chanel got tired of losing her things. So she designed a bag with a shoulder strap, inspired by soldiers' bags, so women could have both hands free.
Yes. And the details? Tell them about the details.
Fine. The burgundy lining, that's the color of the uniforms from the orphanage where she grew up. The double flap, the first flap hides the main compartment. The second flap has a zippered pocket, supposedly where she hid her love letters. And the little Mademoiselle lock, it's named because Coco never married. She remained Mademoiselle Chanel.
See? It's not a bag. It's a biography. Every stitch is her life. The poverty, the secrets, the independence. When I carry a 2.55, I'm not carrying leather and chain. I'm carrying a story of survival.
That's actually a very rational reason to buy something. You're not paying for materials. You're paying for narrative. And from an economics perspective, that narrative holds value. A 2.55 bought in 1955 for $220 would be worth thousands today, if you kept it in good condition.
So you're saying my bag is an investment?
I'm saying if you ever sell yours, let me know. But only if it has the original receipt.
Never. Okay, we have to mention the tweed suit, the two-tone slingback shoes, the camellia flower, but we have a whole podcast to do. So let's summarize this segment.
In short, Chanel's iconic designs all share the same DNA. Practicality disguised as luxury, simplicity disguised as sophistication, and a very specific, consistent visual language.
And emotion, don't forget emotion.
An emotion. Yes.
Good boy. Now, let's zoom out, because Chanel isn't just clothes, it's a cultural force. Leo, let me ask you a weird question. If Chanel didn't exist, would women dress differently today?
Yes, but not in the way you think. Chanel didn't invent minimalism, but she popularized it at a time when maximalism was the rule. She made it acceptable, even desirable, to look simple.
I agree, but I think it goes deeper. Chanel changed the psychology of dressing. Before her, women dressed to please men. Corsets emphasized fertility. Bustles emphasized, well, the behind. But Chanel said, dress for yourself. Dress for movement. Dress for your own comfort.
That's a powerful shift. And you see it in the 1920s flapper movement. Short hair, dropped waistlines, exposed arms. That was directly influenced by Chanel. She wasn't the only designer doing it, but she was the loudest voice.
And then in the 1950s, when Dior brought back the corseted look, Chanel said no again. She said, I'm not going back to tying women up. And that second rebellion against the new look, that influenced the feminist movements of the 1960s and 70s said.
Let me add a layer. Chanel also democratized luxury in a way. Before her, luxury meant rare materials. Silk, velvet, fur, jewels. Chanel used jersey, which was cheap. She used costume jewelry, fake pearls. That was scandalous. The rich were horrified. But then they realized, if you wear cheap fabric with confidence, it becomes expensive.
Yes, the ultimate power move. She basically said, your gold doesn't impress me. I'll make a piece of string look elegant. That's not fashion. That's attitude.
And that attitude has been adopted by every luxury brand since. The idea that the person wearing the clothes is more important than the clothes themselves, that's pure Chanel.
But there's also a dark side to the cultural impact, right? The exclusivity, the prices, the snobbery.
Absolutely. While Chanel herself came from poverty, The brand today is a symbol of extreme wealth. A classic flat bag costs around $8,000 to $10,000. Now, that's not accessible to most people. And there's been criticism that the brand deliberately creates scarcity, raising prices every year, limiting production, to maintain an aura of exclusivity.
I feel conflicted about that. On one hand, I get it. Luxury needs to feel rare. On the other hand, Coco Chanel said, luxury must be comfortable. Otherwise, it is not luxury. But comfortable for whom? For the billionaire? Or for the woman saving for 2 years to buy one bag?
That's a valid point. And from a rational perspective, Chanel as a business, which is now privately held by the Wertheimer family, is incredibly smart. They don't sell online for their handbags and ready to wear. You have to go to a boutique. You have to be served. That creates desire, but it also creates a barrier.
So the brand that started as a rebellion against aristocratic excess has become the new aristocracy.
That's the cycle of luxury. Every revolutionary brand eventually becomes the establishment. The question is, does the original spirit survive? I think in Chanel's case, partly yes, but only partly.
I want to end this segment on a hopeful note. Because despite the prices, Chanel's influence on culture is mostly positive for me. It taught generations of women that you don't need to be decorative. You can be powerful.
And that's why the brand still matters. Not because of the double C logo, but because of the idea behind it. Elegance is refusal.
Elegance is refusal. I love that. Okay, next segment, this is where we get personal. Okay, honest talk. Leo and I disagree on something, and we're going to share it with you.
We disagree on many things, but for today, it's about worth.
Right. I own a Chanel bag, a vintage 2.55 from the 1980s. I saved for it. I cried when I bought it, and Leo thinks I'm crazy.
I don't think you're crazy. I think you're emotional. There's a difference. Let me state my position clearly. From a pure utility perspective, no handbag is worth $5,000. You can buy a perfectly functional, beautiful leather bag for $200. The extra $4,800 is for the name, the history, the feeling. And that feeling is real. But is it rational? No.
But Leo, not everything in life has to be rational. You buy expensive coffee. You could make coffee at home for 50 cents. But you pay $5 because you enjoy the experience, the atmosphere, the ritual.
That's a fair comparison. But I pay $5 for coffee maybe 3 times a week. You spent thousands on one item. The scale is different.
Okay, let me explain my emotional logic. Every time I carry that bag, I feel something. I feel connected to Coco's story, the orphan girl who made it. I feel confident. I feel like I'm carrying a piece of art, and that feeling lasts for years, not just one coffee. So per use, my bag costs maybe a few dollars. That's not irrational. That's an investment in my own happiness.
I can't argue with happiness. But let me push back. Do you need the logo? Do you need other people to know it's Chanel? Or could a no-name bag with the same design give you the same feeling?
That's a good question. I think part of it is the logo. I'm not going to pretend I'm above that. The double C means something culturally. It's a shortcut to a certain world. But the bigger part is the craft, the stitching, the chain that feels heavy but not too heavy, the way the leather smells. A fake bag doesn't have that. And my happiness comes from knowing that I own something real, something made by people who care.
I understand that. And I'll admit, from a rational perspective, there is value in owning objects that last. Fast fashion falls apart. A Chanel bag, if cared for, can be passed down to a daughter or son. That's actually more sustainable. So I'm not completely against it.
Wait, are you agreeing with me?
Don't get used to it. I'm saying that while the initial price is high, the long-term value, emotional and functional, can justify it. But only if you actually use it. If you leave it in a closet, then it's a waste.
I use mine every week, so I win.
Fine, you win this round. But let me give our listeners a rational tip. If you want the Chanel aesthetic without the Chanel price, look for vintage, look for secondhand, look for small leather goods like wallets or card holders. You don't need a $10,000 bag to feel the magic.
That's actually great advice. And my emotional tip? If you really want it, and you've saved responsibly, and it won't put you in debt, buy it. Life is short. Wear the bag. Wear the perfume. You don't have to be rich to own one beautiful thing.
That's the most reasonable thing you've said all day.
Shut up. Okay, we have one more segment before the language wrap-up. Let's talk about the words we use when we talk about luxury. One of the things our listeners love is when we highlight useful English vocabulary from our conversation. So, Leo, let's go through 5 to 7 key words or phrases from today's episode.
Great idea. Let's start with an obvious one, iconic. We use this word many times. An iconic thing is something that represents an entire category. The little black dress is iconic. Chanel No. 5 is iconic. You can say that movie is iconic, or she has an iconic style.
Iconic. Love it. Next.
Rebellion. Chanel's whole story is a rebellion against tradition. Rebellion means fighting against rules or authority. Example, wearing sneakers to a wedding was a small act of rebellion.
Good one. I also love the phrase, elegance is refusal. That's a quote from Coco Chanel. It means that being elegant isn't about adding more. It's about knowing what to leave out. You can refuse a third dessert. You can refuse an ugly pattern. That's elegance.
That's a high-level English phrase, very sophisticated. Our next word is timeless, something that doesn't go out of fashion. A Chanel suit is timeless. A good joke is timeless. Opposite, trendy, or dated.
And I want to add craftsmanship. That's the skill and quality of making something by hand. Chanel bags are famous for their craftsmanship. You can also say, the craftsmanship of this wooden table is amazing.
Another good one, scarcity. We mentioned that Chanel uses scarcity, meaning they make fewer products than people want, so the demand stays high. Scarcity is also used in economics. Example, during the pandemic, there was a scarcity of toilet paper.
Not the most glamorous example, but it works. Last one from me, a blank canvas. That's what we called the little black dress. A blank canvas is something empty that you can add your own ideas to. A white wall is a blank canvas for art. Your life is a blank canvas for your choices.
That's poetic, Chloe. Okay, final language tip. Notice how we used but and however a lot in our debate. That's because good conversation needs contrast. I love Chanel, but the prices are high. The history is inspiring. However, the wartime period is problematic. Using these words makes your English sound more natural and nuanced.
Perfect. So, listeners, practice those words this week. Tell someone about an iconic thing in your life. Describe a rebellion you've done. And use elegance is refusal to sound very smart.
Or just sound like you watch too many fashion videos.
That too. Now, let's wrap this up. We've covered so much today. From an orphanage in Saumur to a global empire. From the little black dress to the 2.55 bag. From cultural revolution to personal obsession. Leo, what's your final, rational verdict on Chanel?
My verdict is, Chanel is a brilliant brand built on a fascinating, flawed human being. The products are well made, the marketing is genius. But I would remind everyone that a logo does not define your worth. Buy Chanel because you love the design, not because you need validation. And never go into debt for fashion.
That's very wise. And my emotional verdict? Chanel represents possibility. A poor girl with a needle and thread changed the world. That means whatever your background, you can create something beautiful. Also, I just really love the smell of number 5.
That's 2 verdicts.
I'm allowed. I'm the passionate one.
Thank you for listening to the Chloe and Leo Show. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who owns or dreams of owning something from Chanel.
And if you don't care about fashion at all, share it with someone who does. We'll convert you eventually. Remember, elegance is refusal. Refuse to be boring. Refuse to let fear stop you. Refuse to forget that you are enough, with or without the double C.
That was actually nice, Chloe.
I knew you had a heart.
Don't tell anyone. Okay, from both of us, Chloe and Leo, thank you. Stay curious, stay chic, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Bye, beautiful people.